Jai Bhim. Welcome to Bebag Bhasha. I am Deepti Sukumar, and today I want to talk about Dalit women, their bodies, and all the different aspects in our lives where we come across violence, where we confront violence, and we have to confront different challenges to make our aspirations known in this society of today. Let us just reflect upon the rape of two Dalit minor girls in Uttar Pradesh and hung from a tree naked. Just recently that happened, and this we all know is a caste atrocity, and every time there is a caste atrocities, we see rapes of Dalit women, and this is nothing but using Dalit women's bodies in any form of violence or in any form of atrocities. Dalit women's bodies are used. So this seems to be on one side of the spectrum, but the other side of the spectrum is also the policy and the different kind of studies or research that is being done on women in general. The latest one, of course, what we have seen in the recent days is the ILO's report on the participation of women, or rather the exclusion of women in the labor force participation in India. The ILO reports that over 53% of women are excluded in the labor force participation of India. But the report is actually falls short of saying that who are these women who are excluded? Are they, because we are not a homogeneous society. There are Dalit women, there are tribal women, and other women with different voices, with different backgrounds, and with different experiences who are part of the population of India. So in all of this, who are these 53% that the ILO reports? So looking at it, we all know that just from a general observation, or just by all our experiences and what we have seen in the country today, we all are aware, very much aware, even though whether we have realized it or not, whether we see it or not, that Dalit women's participation in the labor force is actually it's quite a high, it's a high visual in any form of labor, being it the construction sector or the market sector. The most visible form is in the sanitation sector, where women make up the majority of any form of occupation that is there in the sanitation sector, especially in manual scavenging, where we come directly in contact with human excreta. So having said this, so where does the problem lie? What is the problem that we are having, and what are the gaps? Dalit women do make up the majority in the labor force participation from my perspective, because I would say that whether it is a construction sector or in any form of labor sector where women are participating, the majority of them are Dalit women or tribal women. To carrying bricks on their head for multiple stories in a building construction, or cleaning latrines, public latrines, especially in public spaces. It is a Dalit women who are in this kind of a labor. So I think the ILO report saying that 53% of women are excluded from the labor force participation is actually showing up. It's actually throwing up or exposing the lack of data of who these women are. How many of them are Dalit women who are excluded in this labor force participation or in the labor force? And once we are saying that, we are also looking at whether this kind of data, having lack of data, is deliberate, or is it just by default, where as usual Dalit women become invisible and are unheard. One of the most significant manifestations of the caste system is untouchability. And untouchability itself is a violence. And Dalit women face untouchability at its worst and at its most. Having said that, I want to look at three forms of violence that Dalit women are facing, apart from the physical violence and the physical atrocities of rapes and abuse. One is the economic violence. What is this economic violence that we're talking about when it comes to Dalit women? Economic violence is nothing but excluding women from the entire economy of the country. So when it comes to economic violence, where are the Dalit women in the economy of the country? I would say that we are in the occupations that carry the stigma of untouchability in the country, whether it is sanitation or any other occupations that have the stigma of untouchability. That is where Dalit women are. But even where the stigma of untouchability is there, those occupations are also contributing to the economy of the country in a very ironical way. So, in that sense, I think the Dalit women, the Dalit women have been used in these occupations that carry the stigma of untouchability because they are being put in by this kind of a system. So, economic violence for us Dalit women is where we have been put into occupations that carry the stigma of untouchability. And the worst part of all this is that even in these occupations, there is minimum wages is never paid. It is far below minimum wages. And always the employment or the engagement to do these occupations is very informal, very casual, and mostly on daily wage basis, or at the most temporary contractual form of employment. So that for us is an economic violence. The other is a social violence. In addition to having these kind of humiliating and insulting situations where we work in these kind of situations, there is also the fact and there is also the situation where the Dalit women can just be kicked out for no reason at all. And the retrenchment is very high among Dalit women. So the first one who can be kicked out of any job because they want to downsize or whatever, it's the Dalit woman or the tribal woman. So that is another that is another form of economic violence that Dalit women are experiencing. And of course, the next would be social violence. Social violence is again because the caste system, the untouchability levels are very high for Dalit women in all circumstances, and social violence is not just out there in the public or in the public domain, but also within the house, in the form of domestic violence, in the form of community-based violence against women, and in public, where we are facing humiliation, insults, abuses in public. And the next is also the political violence. Where do we see Dalit women in the politics or in any political events in the country? When I say political violence, we can also look at the political events where the major political visuals are being seen by the entire country. Any political events, any kind of a party events, the Dalit women are rarely seen. And the only place that we Dalit women are there or figure anywhere in these political sector is to make up the mass at the bottom of the stage. And we see images where Dalit women are used, or Dalit women homes are used, to show that a dominant caste person is having his food in a Dalit woman's household. So in all these sectors, whether it is a political sector or whether it is economic sector or social sector, the Dalit woman is being used, exploited and abused. And among these challenges, what exactly are our aspirations then? The aspirations are very simple. Count us where it matters. In every data that we are being seen, or every data that is being put out by any sector, Dalit woman needs to be counted, has to be counted. Unless we are counted and our voices heard and our bodies seen and our faces seen, this country will never be able to bridge that gap of discrimination that has been caused by both caste and patriarchy in this country. Because unless these voices are heard, this historical injustice can never be put to right, because this historical injustice is not just today and yesterday. It is coming from the Manusmriti, where the Manusmriti in general says that women are inferior, that women are equivalent to dogs. But when it says in general women are equivalent to dogs, then what about the Dalit women? Where do they figure? Where do we figure in this entire Sanatan Dharma of the country? Where is the Dalit woman in all this? Break this silence, tear off the masks, tear down these barricades, tear down these blockages that are preventing and denying Dalit women to fulfill her aspirations.